It is time to definitively determine what is the best two-player game in existence, and not only that, what is the best two-player only game in existence in this room and board Deathmatch, where we pit 31 of the bravest games up against each other. These games, for your pleasure and for your glory, only to have one of them emerge victorious on top. It's the bloodiest board game tournament around. It's the most destructive board game tournament around, and it will for sure leave you with a shelf filled with games that have spontaneously combusted and are nothing more than ash. Those are the rules. I didn't make them. I had them handed down to me by our Lord Board Gameron. But really, he's just a bunch of boxes combined together. He's not really that intimidating. In fact, his head is Boop, which I think is the least intimidating game that you could put as your head. Like, you don't even choose Nemesis or something alien-like. No, you just choose Boop. But that's Board Gameron's strategy to keep you underestimating. These are the games floating by my head all throughout the month of July. We have been voting on one or the other in a March Madness style bracket, and it is time to reveal the results to you all, to everyone here. And boy, oh boy, they might shock you. And we specifically chose two-player only games, and you will see a couple deviations from this on the list with a solo mode or with a fake mode that you should never play. But pretty much these are two-player only games, and people could have used that to their advantage to kick them out. These are two-player only games. The only way that you should be able to play these is two players, and so, of course, I'm sure a solo game will win the death match. Is that a spoiler? I guess we're gonna have to wait and see. Make your predictions down below as to what is the best two-player game on the list, and that is going to win. Make your predictions and let me know which ones was snubbed, which ones my foolish patrons didn't put forward as a suggestion, and I will personally spank their little bottoms in recompense because they didn't put that up for contention. Or maybe they did and I just didn't choose it because it's garbage. It's one or the other. It's one or the other. But let's get into the first match. We have Caesar Sees Rome, which is a sequel to Caesar Plays Simon Says, and Caesar Plays I Spy, and Caesar Counts Sheep. No, we have Caesar Sees Rome in 20 minutes, rebranded from Carmen Sandiego, is in Rome for 20 minutes, hanging out with Waldo, and can you find them? Who knows? Which somehow the BGG listing for that one has been removed. And it's taking on Radlands. So Caesar Sees Rome, which I hadn't really known about before this death match, is a game about this little area control game that you're playing. You're going to be drawing these tokens. You can see there's some red tokens. Ooh, they're hiding. Now they're blown up and they're hiding. Red tokens hiding behind the screen. You're going to put them on a line, and you will contribute force to one side and the other. So you see in Egyptus and Cyrene, there's 0 blue force being committed there, and then there's 6 blue force being committed into Egyptus. Egypt us. That's pretty much it. You are vying to put all your control markers out on the board and win the game. Pretty simple. Seems actually pretty fun. We'll play quickly. I would guess, if I had to guess, it might play in around 20 minutes. Speaking of that around 20 minutes, 20 to 40 minutes, we have Radlands, which is by Roxley Games. This one is rated very high on Board Game Geek, and it is a two-player head-to-head card game where you are all drawing from a communal deck. On your turn, you will have essentially 3 actions represented by these water tokens, and you can spend them on cards. Each card will require you to spend a certain amount of water. Here, for example, Mizu Hidetaka would require you to spend all 3 of your water to just put them into play. And so this is a lane battler in which there are 3 lanes that you're going to be placing people, and you're protecting your 3 strongholds. They also all do abilities. So you choose your strongholds at the beginning of the game, and then you draw a hand of cards, and you can use the card for either playing in front of you, or for its discard ability. So sometimes you may have a really strong, powerful guy that's cost 3 water, but you just don't have it in the tempo. It's going to get killed right away, and so you might use it for its discard ability, which is like deal 1 damage directly, etc. The first person to take out their opponent's 3 locations wins the game. I kind of expected Radlands to win here. I think Radlands is going to go pretty far in this matchup. And I think Caesar Sees Rome has really zero chance. But, you know, there were a decent amount of votes heading towards Caesar, and having read the description now, it seems pretty cool. Kind of neat. I think it feels like a very simple game, and I would be on the look for it if it wasn't burnt for all eternity in a 20-11 vote. Moving along, we have That Time You Killed Me taking on Targi. These two have seen deathmatch matches before. It's surprising that they've made a return considering they've all been burnt to ash, but I guess there was a reprint. That Time You Killed Me is a game that is 4D chess. Essentially, it's 4D chess where you're trying to push each other off the board. There'll be these 3 different timelines. This is a homebrew version, but this is kind of what the game looks like. And each one of these grids will represent a timeline, and so you can either sort of move on that timeline, or you can send yourself into the past or into the future and leave a echo of yourself in the existing timeline. And so the goal is to push your opponent off all spaces to win the game. Jumping around, moving around in time, murdering yourself over and over until you come on top. It's facing off against Targi. Targi, which is a 2-player game. You can play it on Board Game Arena, where you are finding the cross-section of your worker placement. So there's going to be a grid of cards. If I get a picture that's zoomed out, that's not a grid, that's just a win. You'll see there's a grid of these cards that are out there, and you will be placing workers all around the outside of this grid. You get to take the actions that are on those cards, and then you also get to take the cards that intersect with your worker placement, because only one person can play. So white is going to get this card up here, and add it to their supply, and those cards will score you points. By all accounts, a very tight worker placement game. I've heard about it a lot from Ruel Gaviola, and this is a very close vote. Actually, both of these are on Board Game Arena if you wanted to try out either of them, if either of them sounds interesting, because that might be the only place you can play them after all physical copies are burned for all eternity. Just don't keep your laptop open with the tab to any one of these, or it may also spontaneously combust. Again, Board Gameron hasn't told me the specifics, and I'm too afraid to ask. Like any good religion, I don't want to know the answer, or I'm not allowed to know. I just have to trust in our Lord and Savior Board Gameron. And this is a really, really close vote. There were a few undecided people who were going for a flip-flop vote, but when the votes came down to it, That Time You Killed Me maintained its 1 vote lead and moves on in a 17-16 vote. And that's surprising to me. I kind of thought Targi was going to go very far as well, but I am 1 for 2. Let's see if I'm right on this next one. We have Claustrophobia 1643 taking on Dungeon Twister. Claustrophobia is a skirmishy minis-style game where one player plays the demon horde and the other player plays, well, the people who fight against the demon horde. Call them heroes, call them villains, I don't care what you call them. Just know that they fight against the demon horde in the catacombs. It's an asymmetric dungeon crawler that uses dice for action selection, which has had its supporters in previous death matches, but it has failed to get out of, I think, the first round in those death matches. But it sounds really interesting. Using dice for action selection, the hero team starts out really strong, and then they slowly get weaker and weaker as dice cover up their abilities. But as you take damage, you have to take hits to your dice slots, so you lose a little bit of strength. Demons and monsters have to come from the edge of the board so that they're swarming the humans, but each tile only has a specific limit of people that it can hold, and so you can create bottlenecks there. I'm stealing all of this from Vault Boy's description, sounding like a really fun head-to-head dungeon crawler. And speaking of dungeon crawlers, Dungeon Twister also kind of fits that bill. You're going to start with a map that's like 2x4 tiles here, which essentially defines the end zone of getting from one spot to the other. Each team, the red team and the blue team, they have all the same characters, and you're going to get points by either murdering each other or by getting to the end zone. But the twist of this game, the literal twist, is that at points you can turn the tiles, and therefore turn the tables by switching the tiles all around in different orientations that can really shake up the game, create new pathways, and give you additional routes to victory. Basically, a balancing action economy and killing potential, according to Rapier's description. I love this. I love when people fight for their games and try to convince other people of their games. It makes these death matches so exciting for me to watch and moderate, and definitely not put my hand on the scale in any way. I would never do that, and I'm certainly not going to. Is that a spoiler? I don't know. I guess we're gonna have to wait to find out. And so both of these had valiant arguments, but I think I had been really attached. Oh man, that's a great mini. I've been really attached to the concept of claustrophobia and the pitch of it before. Dungeon Twister seems neat to me as well, but I like the asymmetry and I like the dice action selection of this one. Either I think would be great candidates and potential to look up. I would be interested in playing either of them. I think they both sound fun, but it is claustrophobia that does move forward in a 15 to 10 vote. Moving along, next round we have Santorini taking on Splendor Duel, a deviation away from the dungeons. Now we have some abstracts. Santorini is an incredible abstract that I talked about recently, and I forget why. Oh, as like a top game that plays in under 60 minutes. Both of these are quick games that you might enjoy with your gaming partner. Santorini being you want to get to the top of a tower before a little dome gets to the top of the tower. Move one of your people to the top of the tower, you win. You can move and build a section. And so it's like move, build a section, but you don't want to build a section that somebody else can then build on top of and then jump on. So it's really balancing how you move and how you navigate. And then everybody has their own asymmetric player ability as well that's shuffled up every time and is new with all of these god cards, Egyptian god cards or Greek god cards, however you feel. Splendor Duel, people seem to like this a lot more than two-player Splendor. I don't know if I do personally. I think the reason why people like it is because it gives you 3 different ways to win the game. It's the same engine building style where you're going to be taking gems and spending those gems to build cards, which will give you additional gems and additional discounts. But instead of the base game of just getting to 15 points, you must get to 20 points or get to 10 crown points, because there's 2 different style of points that are on the game, right? This right here, or get to 10 points in a single color. And so having those 3 pathways to victory is something to navigate. In addition, you're taking from this board and you can take 3 gems that are in a row. And so there's a little bit of a tactical situation here, and there still is that lovely denial of chips that exists pretty significantly in Splendor, the base Splendor that also exists here. Whoa, this one is very close. I don't know what happened when I called it. I think one game didn't have an additional vote. A vote has been added, which would have changed the outcome of this situation. Right now, it's a game that's moving forward in a 17 to 16 vote, but it would have been 17-17, and then Splendor Duel would have won the tie because it did get an extra vote. But that's not what happened. When the vote was called, it was Santorini that moves forward in a 17 to 16 vote. I mean, I like Santorini more. I don't know, I like this mechanism of it. They kind of used it in Sobek as well, Sobek 2 players, which isn't in this death match because I thought it was just kind of okay. But I like this navigating and shaping of the board gives it more variability than Splendor, but I just think the variability in Santorini is top notch, and I'm very happy that Splendor gets out of the competition. I think I'm 3 for 4. Let's see if that continues for my own personal preferences. Next up, we have Codenames Duet, which is, well, it's Codenames for 2, taking on Caper Europe, which is, well, it's Caper for Europe. If you know how to play Codenames, you know how to play Codenames Duet. You have to hint to each other to make sure you get the correct words down. And it distills the Codename experience into a 2-player experience. And I think a few games have used that, or a few like party games have used that same sort of style of system of distilling things down for their own games as well. I love that you might have some X's that you think are assassins but are actually the right words to put down. I think that's kind of neat. Caper Europe seems interesting. It's a drafting game in its essence. It says you take turns sending thieves to famous locations across Europe, vying for control through special card powers. Getting to these locations first, snatching up the goods, and then using your cards to help the locations that you're at, essentially. It's a 3-lane battler style of game. And Caper Europe has collected a couple votes. Now, when I look back, it is 14 to 12 for Codenames Duet, but when the vote was called, it was 14 to 10 for Codenames Duet, and Caper Europe is imprisoned for life without parole. Moving along, we have Watergate taking on Wizards of the Grimoire. Watergate is a two-player tug-of-war game where famed president and not a crook, Richard Nixon, fights out against the newspaper who definitely proved that, yeah, sorry, he was a crook. He was a crook. Sorry, you're a crook. And you tried to muzzle the press. Like some current felon presidents that we also know of. Each round you'll have 3 cards that you'll play. Your goal is to, as the informants, to uncover some informants. You put them on the board. You can see their faces are face up, and they haven't been corrupted yet. They haven't been put face down. And then you want to move evidence to create a pathway to Richard Nixon. If you can create a pathway with 2 informants, you will win the game. Nixon, on the other hand, will be flipping evidence tokens face down so that he can block the pathway, block the trail of evidence back to him. Be like, oh, no, it doesn't exist. Sorry, no proof, no pudding. And all the while you'll be fighting with this sort of tug-of-war mechanic, which will give you both the initiative and decide the turn order for the next round, decide how many cards everybody gets, and also decide you'll be moving evidence back and forth over here on if it's going to get flipped up and get placed on the board, or if it's not. And the cards have multiple uses. It's a fun tug-of-war. You know what? It's probably my favorite tug-of-war game, even though I'm not a big fan of tug-of-war games. Wizards of the Grimoire has been getting a lot of positive press recently, and it's trying to stand out as not just another Duel Monsters clone, but as its own unique head-to-head card game. You're going to be drafting these spells every round, and then using the spells and using mana, if you're nasty, against your opponent, activating these different spells, and dealing with all the spells' different amounts of cooldown as well. It's just a simple system, a nice flowing system that has received a lot of votes in this competition, and looking back now, this probably should have won and moved forward. I don't know, did it? Am I just forgetting? Am I just leading you along because Wizards of the Grimoire actually wins this whole thing? Right now, if I were to call the vote right now, Wizards of the Grimoire would win by a 2-vote lead, but that's not what happened. Back when the vote was called, Watergate was ahead 15-14, and if you think that I'm changing these votes, well, where's the evidence? Where is the trail of evidence leading to my crimes? I am not a crook, okay? So put that in your crook and smoke it. We're moving on to Seven Wonders Duel taking on Mindbug First Contact. Seven Wonders Duel is probably my #1 most overrated game. Overrated being highest up on BGG, where I say, I don't care for it. I think it's just fine, but I really hope it loses. But we'll have to find out. Seven Wonders Duel is, again, a similar drafting game where you will uncover certain cards depending upon what cards are chosen. So there's a big back and forth, and it follows the same rules as Seven Wonders. You need to have resources to build certain cards, or you need to spend money for them. You can also win this by tug of war. If you win the warrior track, the military track, if you manage to push that all the way to one side, you win outright. If you're able to get a scientific victory by getting all 5 science symbols, you win outright. But if neither of that happens, you have to wait and count to see who has the most points at the end of the game. You're going to go through 3 rounds through different orientations of the pyramids, drafting cards, hoping to get the better cards for yourself and not for your opponents, while leaving a little bit of mystery of what cards will be uncovered as you take the last card and flip those over. There's also ways to get bonus turns in a row by using your wonders effectively, and that's probably my favorite part about this game, is chaining those games in a row. I think I prefer Mindbug here. Mindbug is another head-to-head card game where each player will have a 10-card deck from a communal deck you shuffle to be dealing randomly, and you will play any card, any character you want on your turn, or you will attack with any character that you want on your turn, and your opponent can choose which character it defends with, or if it takes the hit to their health points. You would think that the best cards would always win, and I would just have the most powerful cards, and would always win. However, if I play a card and you really love that card, you can use one of your 2 mind bugs and pretend as if you have just played it. And so the crux of the game is sort of bluffing each other out of, okay, I played that card. Do I want you to use your mind bug right now, or don't I? Are you using it? Am I trying to get both of them out of the way so that I can drop this sneaky little one and keep attacking you because I know you don't have anything to defend against it? Or is it worth it to take it right now? A nice head game that's back and forth that I know won't defeat Seven Wonders Duel. Even though it's really close. Again, looking back, it's 18-15 for Seven Wonders Duel. I wonder what it was like when it was called 18-14. So Mindbug got a little bit of love after the match was called. But unfortunately, it is not enough to overthrow Seven Wonders Duel, which I fully expect to see in the finals. Let's move along to Mandala, to the other side of the bracket now. Mandala taking on Onitama. I had also never heard of Mandala before this death match as well, before looking into it. You're trying to collect the most valuable cards, but you don't know what cards are the most valuable until the end of the game. You're basically able to determine what value of cards will be scored for your opponent. And so you're collecting cards, and then you'll be determining the value of your opponent's cards, and you want their cards to be worth less than your cards as you take these cards from the center. Seems like an interesting game. Feels maybe along the same lines as Arboretum, and I really did not enjoy that game whatsoever. I had such an abysmal time with it. I thought this is a trash game for trash people, so I'm scared. Onitama has been a game that is kind of like an abstract hit that people have really been enjoying. You have two actions, two movements that you can move your pieces in this abstract game as you're trying to murder each other, taking out the main pawn of your opponent or moving your main pawn into the opponent's starting space. That's how you win the game. And you can use these cards to move your pieces around. Now, the distinct thing here is once you use a card, you swap it with whatever this fifth card is. And so there's that swap back and forth, knowing that you're going to give your opponent access to this. Feels like it's a game that would break my brain, but I also kind of expect it to move forward here. And it should be said that all this while, the agents of chaos in the Discord have been trying to sow the seeds of rebellion. They've been trying to nominate their own candidates forward, foolish candidates that don't even have a focus on a two-player experience, but have a one-player experience that people love, or a four-player experience that people play it at. So Voidfall was the write-in nominee for this, but unfortunately, all the Void addicts out there forgot to consider that their extra votes for Voidfall were nullified by the fact that they looked like a little panda. The pandas of Takenoko rose up to fight the Voidborn and tore them to shreds like skewers of bamboo. There was no chance for Voidfall to move forward because, and specifically because, of the Voidfall's lack of attention to detail of how their little votes looked like pandas. And I'm sorry, again, take it up with Board Gameron. I don't make these rules. I would just think that people who play one of the crunchiest games out there, who pride themselves on playing this 4.62 complexity, would kind of pay a little bit more attention to detail. You know, I kind of expected more from them. And really, they not only let down Voidfall, they let down me as well. They personally let me down, and they let themselves down for this just horrible attempt at a write-in vote that never had a chance of winning whatsoever. And so because of that, the pandas rip away the votes for Voidfall, and unfortunately, the pandas' attack on Voidfall was so great that it will never be in another deathmatch competition. It is barred. This has never happened before in deathmatch history. And again, I wish it were just me. I wish I made the rules here. But Board Gameron, I was talking to him, and he's like, "Listen, we got to punish these intruders. We gotta really lay the hammer down. We have to abuse our authority here completely and take something from them to make them feel the true meaning of void, and be devoid of all hope and happiness for the future." And it is Voidfall that is permanently banned from any board game deathmatch tournaments moving forward, which is just, it's a hard thing to see, but a real benefit is that Mandala moves on to the next round. So congratulations, Mandala. Apologies to Voidfall. You know, you tried your best, and it really, really wasn't enough whatsoever. Moving along. Moving along, we've got Hero Realms taking on the Fox in the Forest. Hero Realms is the 2 to 4 player game, but it's really a 2-player game because Star Realms is a 2-player game, and they're just like, we want to sell more copies of a deck building game of punching each other in the face. You want to get enough buying power to purchase better cards. You want to synergize your cards all together. It's a great little deck building game and reduce your opponent's health tracker to 0. It's taking on the Fox in the Forest, which is a 2-player trick-taking game where you want to win more tricks than your opponent, but you don't want to win too many tricks. See, if you win 10 to 13 tricks, you've actually been very greedy and haven't won enough tricks in the game. You want to hit that sweet spot of 7 to 9 tricks. And so you have this back and forth, again, of playing cards which have some special abilities on them, playing cards back and forth, and trying to get the most points. But if you think you're going to beat Matt Hulgan's mom, well, you got another thing coming for you, all right? Madame Hulgan has got something to say as the Fox representative of this tournament. And so I kind of expected Fox in the Forest to beat Hero Realms here, but it is not the case. Hero Realms moves forward in a 16 to 12 vote. Moving along, we have next the Battle of Versailles taking on Hive. I think this is going to be just a clear sweep for Hive, but I wanted to give a shout out for Battle of Versailles. I also don't think enough people have received this to warrant that anybody was going to change their mind or be interested in having this win, but this represents a fashion off, very similar to what happened in Zoolander, a walk-off, if you will, between the Americans and the Europeans in the great fashion dance of the Battle of Versailles. There's 2 asymmetric decks, and you'll walk the little runway, choosing actions. As the Americans try to steal the glory from the French have 5 actions a turn, and the Americans only have 3 actions a turn to correspond with the length of their fashion shows, but the Americans try to win by being more innovative than the French, which they can easily do by just not putting butter in every single meal. Will the Americans accept that? No, they'll double it and only eat sticks of butter from here on out, but they had a chance, and that's what matters. Hive is the standard abstract game which you've likely heard of. You have a queen bee, and you don't want that queen to be surrounded by pieces. The queen needs to be able to escape, and if the queen is completely surrounded, you lose. It doesn't matter if it's completely surrounded with your own pieces, you will lose. Each piece can move in a special way, and so you're navigating the grasshoppers who can jump over the entire row, the beetles who can sit on top of people, the ants who can scurry around all the outside of the game. But the key here is that if you move a piece, like if I was to move this grasshopper right now, and you all know how I love moving grasshoppers, watching them jump or having them combat shipping, who can tell? That's not allowed because the beetle would be left asunder into the void. And as we know, the void cannot exist from here on out. And so there was a lot of love being shown for Battle of Versailles, but there's nothing that can compete against Hive at this stage of the game. It's Hive that moves forward in a 15 to 9 vote. Moving along, we have Sky Team taking on Unmatched. Now, I have this Unmatched 2 to 4 players, but I kind of was just representing the Unmatched system because I had myself a good time with it recently and changed my opinion of it. Well, not really. I still think it's good. You know, it doesn't blow me away. I think it is a good system, something I'm happy to play at any time, but not something that I'm going to run out and throw myself upon while wearing yellow stockings. In Sky Team, it's a cooperative game with limited communication, which is one of my favorite things in cooperative games because I don't want to hear from you. I want to do my own thing and have you glare at me because I'm doing the wrong thing, and I can say, hey, oh, can't you speak? No, I'm going to do what I want. And then you can glare consistently, and then the game can end, and then you can never talk to me again because you're so mad that I wasn't listening to your nonverbal cues or using logic in the correct way. Not that that's happened. You want to land your plane in a bunch of different airports around the world, and to do that you need to silently assign your dice to the correct spaces in your cockpit to balance the axis of your plane, to deploy the flaps, extend the landing gear, contact the control tower to clear your path, and even have a little bit of coffee because you need to perk yourself up so that you can actually land this plane. and not crash it, which landing is the hardest part of flying. It's mostly about the takeoff and the landing, and so many planes crash when they're landing, or at least they did in World War II, which is what I'm more familiar with because I did a docudrama about a Lancaster bomber crew once upon a time. And it made me terrified of flying because everyone was like, oh yeah, when you got on the plane, you just assumed that you were dead. And then when you got out of the plane, you're like, oh, look at that, I'm still alive. And that's how you maintained a healthy mental state. That certainly did not help me maintain a healthy mental state from here on out. So don't overshoot the airport or crash or collide with another plane because, that would be bad. Unmatched is a game system where you will take a character, you will have a deck of cards, you'll draw a certain number of those cards, and then you'll be on a board that has these beautiful, beautiful different colors which indicate line of sight if you can hit somebody with a ranged attack or whatever, and you move around on this board trying to punch each other in the face and make your opponent take damage. You'll say, I'm attacking you. You'll each play a card face down. You'll reveal them. Yours will have a certain number of attack. Theirs will have a certain number of defense. You deal the difference in damage. But they also will have a number of different abilities that you can activate, and every character is unique and can fight against each other. I like this as a system. I like it as a concept. I did not like Luke Cage versus Bullseye. I thought that was a dumb one, and especially because the demo that I did just showed Luke Cage pummeling Bullseye into a corner without Bullseye being able to escape. I did that in a recent game that I played too, where my opponent trapped himself in a corner, but it felt better because he made the mistake to trap himself into a corner, and then I could just beat upon him with all three of my people while he only had one. It's a solid system, but it is not enough to beat the hype that has been surrounding Skyteam. People have been really enjoying this. This is absolutely going to win the Spiel des Jahres this year. Like, there is no doubt that this game will not win the Spiel. No other game has been talked about enough or as much by anyone else other than Skyteam this year. I feel like it's all I hear, and that is why this one moves forward in a 21-10 vote. Sorry, Unmatched, you were unmatched. Moving along, we have Schotten Totten versus Pacific Ocean. Schotten Totten is by Rainer Knizia. It was re-implemented by Battle Line, I want to say. Yeah, by Battle Line. Essentially, there are 9 lines. There are 9 sections in this lane battling game where you are laying cards down and trying to vie for control over 5 of them. You want to win the majority. If you do, you win. This one has a Schotten theme to it instead of a battle theme to it. What is a Schotten, you ask? I assume it's this one. It's taking on Pacific Ocean, which has a mechanic that I like quite a lot. It's a very, very small tin game, a small card game, 18-card game, where you will play 1 card face up and 1 card face down. These will have multi-uses. You can add to their symbols to your tableau, or you can add their scoring condition to your tableau. So it's like a combination of point salad and tussy mussy, or maybe it's just tussy mussy. I think this looks really cool. My buddy Colin, shout out to Colin Mustard, bought this after seeing it on Crowdfunding Countdown. I haven't played it yet, but he's having a lot of fun with it and has pulled it out a bunch and really, really enjoys it. And so I wanted to add it in. I thought it was a really cool 2-player game, a really quick one, and I love the balance of the bluffing that can happen. Matching symbols gets that point salad feel, which I really like. The game point salad, not just the scoring condition of point salad. I think it's a really neat one, and this one came down really close. Looking back now, Schotten Totten is ahead by just 1, but when it was called, it got all the undecided votes, and it moves forward in a 16-11 vote, which is a bummer because this was the one that I threw in, that I don't think anybody asked for, but I threw this one in anyway, and it did not move out of the first round as most of my picks do. The Schotten Totten's on. Next up, we have Star Wars, the deck building game, taking on Blue Moon. We've almost reached the end of all of the descriptors, and then we're just going to blaze through this and through the following rounds. Star Wars: The Deck Builder is your standard head-to-head deck building game, but with a slight twist, and you can see that here represented by the market. You only have access to certain cards. You have access to the cards that are for the Empire or for the Rebel Alliance, the Rebel Scum, but you can also buy out these cards from the market so that your opponent can't get them. You want to destroy your opponent's forces and not get destroyed. Use the forces and destroy the forces. That's Star Wars, the board game. It's taking on Blue Moon, which is, again, by designer Rainer Knizia. It says it's compared to Magic the Gathering, but I really doubt that it is, because the gameplay doesn't really feel like that's gonna be true whatsoever. You're gonna play cards back and forth to each other. They'll have strength or whatever, and they'll all have different abilities on them. You announce what you're going to be fighting in, fire or earth, and then you can only play those types of cards. As your power total creeps up and you try to match the power total or overcome the power total of your opponent while playing other cards to give you additional effects in this head-to-head number battler. Although we do have some Blue Moon fans out there. Somebody in the Discord said that Blue Moon is so good, I accidentally bought the same expansion for it twice. I don't know if that means Blue Moon is so good. I think that means you bought an expansion, never played it, and then bought it again. Maybe that. But it is not enough to overthrow the Star Wars deck building game, which looks cool. I saw Colin and Zach playing it at a little board game hangout that we had, but I did not play it. And so that's all I can say on the matter. But it's Star Wars that moves on into the next round. Next up, we have Patchwork taking on Lost Cities. Probably two of my least favorite games in this bracket, although I did get a much more renewed appreciation for Patchwork, having looked into it in significant detail for the World Series of Board Gaming. It is no longer the World Series of Board Gaming's lineup, but I still really do appreciate Patchwork being played at a super high level. In Patchwork, there's going to be circle of tiles, these sorts of tiles, and a little pawn, that little pawn, and so you can take any of the three tiles ahead of that pawn, and the pawn will go and replace that spot on the board, letting your opponent choose. Or maybe your opponent won't choose because each tile has a time value, and with that time value, you move that many spaces on the main board. And if you are still behind your opponent, well, guess what? You get to go again. So you have to pay buttons and time to make yourself a quilt of many colors, filling in your quilt as much as possible, and then also giving yourself potential income down the line so you can purchase more buttons and more quilt spaces, with empty spaces making you have negative points at the end of the game. It's taking on another Knizia. That was a Uwe Rosenberg game. Taking another Knizia, which I just find dreadfully boring as well. Because I think the game comes down to a 50-50 chance on will you draw that number 10 is essentially what it seems to always come down to for me. And of course, that means that it comes down to that for everybody. You have a hand of 8 cards, and you want to be playing cards into these various expeditions, they're called. The cards of the same color go into the expeditions, and you have to start with lower numbers and finish with higher numbers. Each row, committing to them, costs you 20 points, and you get the points that are showing on the cards. So this, for example, this red player is lost 1 point because this adds up to 19, and they've already done a 20-point investment. Over here, though, they've gained 15 points, and in fact, they've gained 45 points because they have 2 handshakes here, so it's actually 15 times 3, because the 2, 8, and 10 cancel out that 20-point investment, essentially. You generally will play 3 rounds, so you can play 1 round, and the person with the most points at the end of these rounds wins. And so looking back at this now, there's actually even a much more clear winner with 15 votes. When I called it, it was only 12 votes. It was 12 to 11 to 5, because we had in another write-in, and this one actually focuses on the 2-player experience, so it seems like some people might have learned their lesson. We have a new competitor that has emerged into the bracket that I thought might take Bounce-Off's spot, but it's not to be. Lost Cities and Patchwork are both out of the competition, and I cannot tell you how happy I am, because so often those 2 games top 2-player game lists. And I think that's garbage. I think it's BS, and I don't think they're fun. And so might as well get a fun campaign game into the mix, which has one of the best rule pop systems I've seen. You can just click on things. It feels so good. It's like a little encyclopedia that plays 1 to 2 players, but we'll just ignore that. We'll just ignore that also probably most of these people are playing it as a solo game because my Discord is filled with solo people who love campaign games, but we're going to ignore that as well. We're also going to ignore that you only get to use 1 mini, which just like highlights the fact that it is a 1-player game and not really a 2-player game. No, we're going to ignore that as well because we're so happy that at least a 2-player focus game got the write-in votes, and Patchwork and Lost Cities are eliminated from the competition in this upset, and we have reached the final matchup. The final match on this side of the Midwest, we have Run taking on Bounce Off. And we'll get to Run in a second, but we do have to talk about Bounce Off. You can see here that Bounce Off is for 2 to 4 players, but it is best at 2 players. Look, 100% of people said that it was best at 2 players. 100%. And you can't make those stats up. But there's something about Bounce Off that everybody is getting involved in, even this cat. Everybody, when Bounce Off is on the table, all other games are pushed aside. It doesn't matter if you're doing a little solo bounce in the corner. You know, if you're just bouncing your little balls in the corner and you just want to have a nice solo bounce off game because you've modified that game, no, more people will come over and start bouncing your balls with you. And it doesn't matter that Bounce Off Party is the correct way to be playing Bounce Off with a group. More players, more balls. Non-stop relay action, okay? In the Bounce Off Party system. If you want to play Bounce Off with multiple people, you are supposed to play Bounce Off Party, but do people listen? No. It doesn't seem to matter, and everybody will throw aside whatever they're looking at to bounce those balls into the grid whenever Bounce Off is on the table. And so because of that, I think that we have to remove Bounce Off from the 2-player only competition. I have to be an honorable judge. I have to focus on something that is more typically a 2-player game. And unfortunately, Bounce Off must be removed from the competition and will be replaced with a game that's sure to let Run live. The enemy of polyamory, it's Fog of Love. Fog of Love is a game for 2 players that delineates a relationship between 2 people. It's kind of like a bit of a role-playing game because you'll take on a role and they'll take on a role and you will each have goals for the relationship. And some of your goals might be to have a successful relationship. And some of your goals might be to have your relationship horribly implode because of that one time you went out to play Bounce Off with a party of people and didn't invite your partner. Okay? It was only one time, and I don't regret it for a minute. You're going to go through this Fog of Love role-playing as this couple that's not you as a couple, so it keeps couples safe and allows them to play it as you try to complete your own objectives. It's taken on Run, which honestly, I'm going to call it right now, I think this should be the one that wins the whole competition. Run is great. I have a full review on Run. It is a hidden movement for 2 players that plays very quickly. You're going to both have the same map, and the runner is just trying to get to certain spots on the map before the helicopter pilot can chase them down and hit them with an energy beam. Quite literally, it's like an energy blast, and the runner goes, ah! And if you hit them twice, like a Mario Party minigame, well then you win as the helicopter, and if you don't, if you escape as the runner, well then you're the runner. But the runner can only move in a certain direction. It can only move in certain directions sometimes. It has to give bits of information to the helicopter. And the helicopter, while following, if they miss, if they're not like scanning correctly, if they don't have a sense of where the runner is, well then they can get additional sort of backup cards. And it scales really well as you go through the game. You keep track of how many wins you've had with a particular side. And then when you play that side, you scale the difficulty so that anybody has a chance of winning. Really solid game. It wallops Fog of Love right out of the competition in a 20-5 vote. And it is Run that moves on into the next round. We've reached the round of 16. You know all the games except for this one. It is Dune War for Arrakis that I need to introduce that is taking on Radlands. And you know what? They're also taking on That Time You Killed Me. And taking on Claustrophobia in 1643. That's right. Enough of this. two-player battles just going head-to-head, I thought I'd switch things up a little bit and make a four-way happen in honor of the non-traditional relationships out there, fog of love. Okay, that's why we're having a nice sweet foursome where two are going to move on and two are going to be disappointed at their experience. And I'm definitely doing it because of that and not because I got distracted and didn't call the vote on the day that I released a video saying, I do this every day. Every single day I call a vote. Wah, wah, wah. Tooting my own horn. Yeah, I missed it. I missed it. But we do get this ultimate showdown where two of these will move on into the quarterfinals. Duel War for Arrakis is by the same people who did War of the Ring. And it's essentially a big old game where you fight with the Harkonnens or the Atreides, and you smash each other in the face over the course of like 4 hours. Zach Groombridge has purchased this game and has not yet read the rulebook or figured out how to play, which was a real bummer for me because I was hoping he would have a definitive answer for me for something coming up later on, which is me wanting to know how to play the game, but he didn't. But you have this big old map that you're fighting for area control. It's an epic battle where, like War for the Ring, one side starts out with a lot of troops and the other ragtag group of Atreides has to get things together. It's taking on Radlands, it's taking on That Time You Killed Me, and Claustrophobia 1643, and this came down to, well, it came down to a very close vote. In fact, it was tied 12 to 12 to 12 to 12. But luckily, we had one group that did not get as many extra votes. That was That Time You Killed Me, which is eliminated from the competition. I gave some time for those votes to be moved over. And then finally, there was a surprise abacus, which was added to Duel War for Arrakis. The abacus is a secret voting condition that sometimes when people don't know what to vote for, they throw it on the abacus and they let whatever the abacus rules are decide. This will become more relevant as we go on. And also we had one die of chaos, an undecided vote that ended up falling for Claustrophobia 1643, so it's Radlands that gets eliminated from the competition, and Dune and Claustrophobia move on into the next round. Okay, now we're gonna really speed up with what I thought was Santorini, but apparently it was Splendor Duel. Splendor Duel is taking on Codenames Duet, and it doesn't matter because Codenames Duet takes it out, whichever the competition is. Maybe I just wanted Santorini to keep on moving forward. Maybe I should have just changed this so that Santorini could keep moving forward into the finals. That would be a good bit and would really help me out. But I thought of that too late, and I must honor the decisions made. It is Codenames that just inches forward in a 14 to 10 vote, and Santorini Splendor Duel are eliminated from the competition. Codenames Duet moves on. Next up, we have Watergate taking on Seven Wonders Duel. I am really pushing for a Watergate win here, but I am not a crook, and I am not going to manipulate these votes either. But on this, it was guessed, the abacus vote was guessed, and the ruling of the abacus, the secret abacus ruling that has been happening in our Discord is very simple. It's just whichever game I like better. I was like, you know what? I am going to put my thumb upon the scale, and if people don't want to decide, I will decide for them. I will make that choice so that they don't have to worry about anything. Don't worry, I'll order for you at the restaurant. You don't have to worry about a thing. I will pick the games that live and die. And so knowing that got added, and suddenly I started seeing a lot more abacus votes, which is really nice for me. It gives me absolute power, which corrupts absolutely. But unfortunately, the die of chaos didn't fall my way, and it is Seven Wonders Duel that moves forward in a 15 to 14 vote. A Watergate is eliminated from the competition. Moving along to Mandala versus Hero Realms. I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on this. Mandala is going to get absolutely obliterated here by Hero Realms because honestly, it sounded a bit uninteresting of the ones that made it forward to the next round. And I'm sorry to all the Mandala fans out there. Tell me why I'm wrong. but it is Hero Realms that really dominates the competition in a 23-9 vote. Next up, we have Hive versus Sky Team, and I kind of expect Hive to take it. A game from 2001 that still holds water with people. People still enjoy it. It's the best rated game of 2001 that exists on Board Game Geek, and I know this because of our next Deathmatch, which I'll talk about at the end of the video. The current one that is ongoing, which has been really interesting to dive into, but there is a lot of love for Sky Team. Oh, and would you look at that? Sky Team has won the Spiel. I was like, this is for sure going to win the Spiel. I don't know when that's decided. It was decided like 2 weeks ago, and it has won the Spiel de Jahres. And unfortunately, Hive has not. In the short time, Sky Team has moved up to 85 on Board Game Geek, so people are loving it, and apparently people in the Discord also love it as well. It is Sky Team that moves forward in a 19-11 vote. Moving along, we have Schotten Totten taking on Star Wars, the deck building game. Schotten Totten, which is that battle line precursor. As you fight for control over the sides of the fence, you build poker-like combinations going for sets or runs, taking on and fighting each other for the win, or emerging as the Empire or the Rebels in that head-to-head game. People are really enjoying the Star Wars deck building game. Apparently it's a great system, and I was not surprised to find out that it absolutely obliterates Schotten Totten in a 20-12 vote. And then finally we have the Icefarian Guard taking on Run. Oh man, I really want Run to win here, but I feel like Icefarian Guard is going to win just because people were excited that it got to be the write-in vote. But Run beat the other write-in vote, so maybe it's got a chance. There are some extra votes on each side. It comes down to a 17-13 vote for one of these games, but it is Icefarian Guard that moves forward and Run is eliminated from the competition. It's time to finish strong. We have Codenames Duet taking on Dune War for Arrakis. One of the winners of the four-way taking on, wow, something that has 6 extra votes right now? That would have changed the tide for sure, unless it came down to the abacus. It did come down to the abacus between Codenames Duet and Dune War for Arrakis. And having not played War for Arrakis, but having played Codenames, the potential of Dune War for Arrakis is something that I would rather play with the second person, and also in honor of Zach purchasing a copy. I didn't want it to be burnt just yet. It is Dune War for Arrakis that moves on into the semifinals. Codenames Duet is out of the competition. Then we have Claustrophobia 1643 taking on Seven Wonders Duel. I fully, again, expect Seven Wonders Duel here, like I said, to be in the final. I would be very surprised if it were overthrown. But looking at the votes, it's not even the abacus that makes me make the decision for everyone. People got really excited about Claustrophobia and about the way people were pitching it. And I think people are tired of Seven Wonders Duel because it's just okay. And so it is Claustrophobia 1643 that moves on in a 19-13 vote. 3 of those votes being mine. Moving along to the other side of the bracket now, we have Hero Realms taking on Sky Team. Sky Team, that cooperative plane landing experience, taking out Hero Realms. Or I was going to say taking on, but you heard it right. Taking out Hero Realms got a bunch of extra votes and, of course, was awarded the abacus by me because I really like Hero Realms as an experience. Great 2-player deck building game. Really, really enjoyable, but it is not enough to handle the heat of Sky Team. It is Sky Team that again moves forward in an 18-15 vote, making me even more excited to try it out. And then finally, we have Star Wars deck building game taking on the Icefarian Guard. I don't know how this one's going to fall here. I feel like Icefarian Guard's been picking up a lot of steam, but also the votes are really coming in for the Star Wars deck building game. And what is lovely about this reveal of the abacus, or it feels somewhat lovely until it won't, is that people are giving me the power to choose which game moves forward. And so in honor of Star Wars deck building game being a true 2-player experience, I think Icefarian Guard will probably be equally good at solo. Like, let's look over here. Best 1 to 2. You know what I mean? 65.8% of people say best at 1 and 53.8% of people say best at 2. I think that goes against the spirit of the 2-player deathmatch. And so therefore it is the Star Wars deck building game that moves forward in an 18-16 vote. So we have reached the final 4 The final battles are about to be had. We have Dune War for Arrakis taking on Claustrophobia 1643, taking on Sky Team, taking on Star Wars the deck building game. One of these games will be crowned the ultimate two-player game of all time. Yes, one of these stalwart favorites, one of these games that definitely aren't only from the past 5 years. Well, honestly, 2019 is better than everything else, which is what, 2023? We have 3 2023 games in this final. Y'all are Cult of the New up the wazoo. Okay, Cult of the Wazoo. Oh, sorry, 2024 is Dune War for Arrakis. But we still have some finals to be crowned. We have Claustrophobia and Dune going back head-to-head from the four-way that they both emerged victorious from. And now only one of them can move forward. I'm so thrilled that Claustrophobia took out Seven Wonders. I feel like I've been in a fugue state whenever I record these things, but I'm like really, really thrilled that Claustrophobia managed to take out Seven Wonders Duel because I thought that was going to be a shoo-in for sure. I think between these two, my Command fanboy is showing, and my desire to play anything War of the Rings, Star Wars Rebellion, like I haven't played those yet, would make me more inclined for Dune to move forward. But the Abacus abstains from putting their weight on the scale because honestly, they're both kind of equal for me. If I had to pick between the two, I would pick both. But it is Dune War for Arrakis that manages to move forward in a 15-11 vote into the finals, and then its competitor will either be Sky Team or Star Wars the deck building game. I guess if I had to pick one of these, I would probably pick Star Wars the deck building game, but I don't feel right putting my hand on the scale in this aspect either. I don't want to be the one to have to make the final decision, and that seems to be what people are pushing me to do. And so I'm just going to let the votes be as they are. It is Sky Team that just edges out the Star Wars deck building game in a 15-13 vote. And so we are here. We have reached the end with a definitely not Cult of the New. We have Dune War for Arrakis, the 120-minute game that's probably 180 minutes, taking on Sky Team, the 15-minute game that you can play over on Board Game Arena right now. Only one of these competitors will be crowned the victor. Only one will emerge victorious. And so let's turn to the votes to see, are you friggin' kidding me right now? It appears we have a 6-6 tie. It's kind of a low voting turnout between these two games. And then it's 23. It's 23 votes for the Abacus. And as we've established, that means that I have to choose to crown a definitive victor between these two games that I have yet to play. I don't know what to do. I thought when I got to this point I would know what to do. But there's even 6 votes for Voidfall. And I could break the ban right now and just add an additional one. Or I could go to sleep and let future Chris deal with it. I think we know the answer to that one. All right. We've reached the final smackdown. The Smynal Smouse Trown. The Crown All Crack Round. And we have Dune War for Arrakis taking on Sky Team. Since the last of this filming, I have played 2 of these games. And yes, I'm talking about playing Sky Team twice. I played it with Renee just now. And I said, listen, I have to make the definitive vote here. This is important. This is important. And so I played Sky Team and Renee played Sky Team. And we have one thing to say about it. And that is to announce our winner wins the competition. That's right. Wins the competition. We definitively decreed that Sky Team is and Dune War for Arrakis. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. That's the end. That's the final. The definitive winner. Congratulations to our winner again. Congratulations. You are the winner of the 2-player deathmatch. You are the game that gets people together, that incentivizes and incites people to joy. And congratulations again goes to our winner. Nah, I'm not going to do you like that. I'm going to give a definitive answer on this game. You can play Sky Team on Board Game Arena. That's what I did. We just played a couple games of Sky Team on Board Game Arena. I haven't yet played Dune for War for Arrakis, and so the decision of this comes down to my feeling on Sky Team. It's fine. Sky Team is fine. I think it is okay. For me, it is personally lacking a certain depth of complexity and decision space, but it's a fun game. It's fun to roll the dice. It's fun to try to manage back and forth, showing your cards, showing your dice, showing what you have, really giving that give and take, managing when you push the landing down. It's a fun game, and we lost twice, and Renee really enjoyed it, and she said, yeah, I like this game. It feels like a roll and write, if roll and writes were an actual game and not just make-believe, because that's her problem with roll and write games. And she said, yeah, you can get this game. I would enjoy playing it with you, quick rounds to bang it out. It's like Space Team meets Hanabi was her description. And because of that, and because it can get Renee to play it, I think that's the benefit of Sky Team, and that's the benefit of why it has won the Spiel des Jahres as well, and why it is going to be the official winner of this death match. I didn't want to crown Sky Team the winner of this death match. I didn't want to crown Dune War for Arrakis the winner of this death match. Actually, I wanted to crown Dune War for Arrakis a little bit more, but Zach has yet to play it. And if Zach had responded enthusiastically to it, then he would have overridden Renee, which that's fine. I can say it. She won't ever watch this video, and she's not around right now, so she won't know my truest heart of hearts. Only you will. But I think Sky Team is, for what it is, a really solid system. I can see why people are enjoying it. And I can also see it being a cult of the new thing that people forget about in 5 years, honestly. But we're not forgetting about it right now. We're going to award it its accolades. It took out the entire Unmatched system. It took out Hive. It punched Hero Realms in the face, and then also smashed down Star Wars, the deck building game, in the face, and eventually went head to head with Dune War for Arrakis, in which people were so apathetic that they let this idiot decide the end of the match. And it has been decreed that since Renee would play it with me, it makes it for a pretty good two-player game. That's it. That is it for the death match. Congratulations goes out once again to our winner, Sky Team. You are apparently the best two-player game of all time, which thankfully I don't have to say is Catan. Once upon a time, I faced my friend Cody in a two-player Catan duel because he was playing two-player Catan consistently, and I said, you can't play Catan with two players, you monster, you need the trading element to it. And so he said, face me in a two-player Catan. I'm like, I know how to beat you, and it's just probability that I will. And the stakes were the highest that they have ever been for me. If I won, Cody was never allowed to play two-player Catan again, and if he won, I had to declare to the world that my favorite way of playing Catan was at the two-player count. It was almost a Catan win here, but luckily I managed to pull out that victory, and so could award it to the Cult of the New Sky Team. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to participate in the death matches, you get in on the daily voting. You can sign up for the Room and Board Patreon. Throw a couple bucks my way if you want. And if you don't, I'll always do these recaps because I don't like hiding things behind paywalls, but I have to for the chance of having a couple dollars in my bank account. This next one is a really fun one, though. I've gone through the past 31 years on Board Game Geek and taken the top ranked game of every one of those years. And so we get a good sense of the BGG top 100 in there, but I think we go all the way to sort of 541. Currently ranked on BGG, that was the #1 ranked game at that year, and they are all going to participate and face off in a death match against each other. And it kind of makes me want to do the #2 one after that, but we'll see what happens. That is what we are currently voting on right now. That is how I know that Ryder Knizia got the top game of the year 3 years in a row back in the 90s. It's a pretty interesting thing that's going on, and the voting can happen right now. So if you want to participate in that, feel free to sign up for Room Board Patreon. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next death match or whatever video comes out on this channel. Thanks for being here. My name's Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase, but apparently I have to go out and buy Sky Team now because I'm desperate to play games with Renee and not interact in any other way. Yuck! So might as well go get that and add it to the collection, even though I think it's fine. I think it's fine. The winner is a game that is fine. I'll see you in the next one.